Hi, I'm Tamara Wolfe, and for those of you from the class of '84, you know me as Tammy Brown. And I am returning today to support Camels Helping Camels during this time. And I love this program, and I'm grateful to have the opportunity to come back and serve Connecticut College, who served me so well back in my time there. And so I'm coming back as a life coach and speaker and owner of Full Spectrum Living, Life by Design, Not by Default. And what I mean by that is that I'm a coach that supports people in living a life they love, a life of possibility, and as opposed to being pushed around by conditions and living by default. And so, with that, it's a mindset perspective, and I teach mindset tools in that whole process. And so, I'm going to be sharing some tips from what I work with my clients today. But just briefly, just so you know kind of where I came from after Connecticut, I briefly worked in the alumni office, um, planning reunions and fun alumni opportunities and events. And then I went on to Goucher College down in Baltimore and got my master's degree in dance movement therapy. And from there, and worked as a therapist for a while. And then from there, stepped into actually being a sales director in a top company, mentoring entrepreneurs in developing their own success, incorporating neuroscience training that really helped with the mindset for success. And through that, I had a greater calling to reach out at a larger version, and that's how I stepped into life coaching. And so excited to share some of what I've been teaching with my clients during this unprecedented time. We are in a global pause, and this is a time that none of us could have predicted. And it's a time where I call it the time where we're on the same playing field with in the world, that everyone in the world is at the same place. And with that, we're taking a look at getting a perspective and how do we navigate. Everyone's finding their way. And so I'm going to offer a blueprint of how we can make our way through not only this time, but other difficult times. This is not our only time that we're going to have that, and it has not been an only time that we've had a difficult time. So I'm going to give some tips along those lines, but I also want to acknowledge that some of you are going through many different difficult times in relation to COVID, and good for you for all that you're doing. You are navigating, you are pulling from resilience that you maybe already had, kind of had within yourself, and you're seeing what you're made of during this time. And I often call this a time where it's difficult. I call it a dark night, or what the Dalai Lama might call it, sacred friend time. And a sacred friend is actually people or circumstances or illnesses that come across that we don't obviously want or welcome, but they're there for a reason. They're there to teach us more resilience. They're here to grow us. So if we can really have that perspective that that's what this time may be for us, it brings a whole different perspective. So what I know in working with people over time is that chaos uh, is potent for transformation. And we know also through history that the universe evolves through chaos. And in the midst of chaos, there can be opportunity. So we're taking a look at that. What is the opportunity here? And as we go forward, there's three keys I want to touch on. And the first one is to learn how to navigate circumstances without circumstances having us. And what I mean by that is when things happen, we don't want it to freeze us up and get us in fear so that we can't move forward. So we're going to find a way to make it through so we are bigger than these circumstances that are here. The second thing we'll kind of take a look at is how to harvest those circumstances and figure out what they're here to teach us. And finally, how can we use the circumstances to create a new beginning? And so with that, I have coined what I call my 5 Ps. And those Ps are pause, perspective, possibility, pivot, and proceed. So the pause, as I mentioned before, I call this a global pause. We're all in it together. And when we can look at our pause as and face it as opposed to wishing it away and neutralizing it, it allows us to take some steps that are more fruitful than if we get frozen up by it. So most of the time when a dark night comes, we want to get rid of it as quickly as we can. And I'm going to encourage you to shift that a little bit and actually, face it. And instead of putting an emotion on it and like saying, this is such a terrible time, this is such a hard time, and that's just natural as humans, that's what we do is we put an emotion on it. Instead of reacting, we're going to be responding. And we can respond better when we neutralize it and just say, this is what it is. And then we come up with a plan. So dark nights are inevitable, and it's part of our evolution. And I actually say every circumstance is the curriculum of our evolution. In business and in personal life, when I was working with entrepreneurs, and I still continue doing that in my coaching and business owners and people working on personal things in their lives, pauses are actually productive. A pause, it's a time to reflect and see how things are going. If you are in business and you're working we're halfway through the year, it's a time to get a perspective. How am I doing? How's my business going? Do I need to tweak anything? Right? So we can have a pause there. It's also a time to pause, maybe personal life. What has been pulling on me? What are things that I can do that I can improve on so I can enjoy my life better? So we want to get a perspective and pause and see what is seeking to emerge here. But the key is that we don't want to just hang out in a pause and get frozen up. So we neutralize, we take a pause. It's a productive time if we can look at it that way. And then we want to gain perspective. What is the perspective? And I say it's a time to look and see, be open to there's something greater seeking to emerge here, but only if I'm paying attention. What is the gift that can be coming from here? And when we have the dark night or the sacred friend come along, we can either think of it as shaping us or shaking us. You have a choice. Or you can think of stepping into the victim mode or being a victor. It's all in paying attention to how you're being during this time. So I actually love the story of the caterpillar moving into the butterfly. And I always think of Eric Carle's story. He has a beautiful illustration of the caterpillar. And, with a caterpillar, it needs, in order to shift to that beautiful, beautiful butterfly, it needs to have the pause. The pause is in the cocoon. So it spends that time in the cocoon and it's building and shifting and transforming into a butterfly. But the butterfly, only gets strong by struggling to get that cocoon off. And we know if we came along and just pulled the cocoon off, like, oh, let me help you, and we pull the cocoon off, the butterfly hasn't strengthened its wings enough, and then it will perish because it hasn't built up its strength. That's what we're doing right now. If you can have the perspective that that's what we're doing right now, that we're building our muscle, we're building our resilience. And our resilience isn't built with tiny weights. We don't build muscle from tiny weights. So if we can look at and shift the perspective that, COVID is an unwelcome sacred friend, but it's also a time for building into a larger version of ourselves, a stronger version of ourselves. So we want to think about how we navigate this challenging time is part of our evolution, and it's helping us step into our greater possibility for ourselves. So we can look at and ask the question, what if this pandemic was a game changer for me? Let's get that perspective. What if something really big can happen here? We're halfway through 2020. What if the rest of the year was the best year ever? I know there are people in like real estate or the mortgage business, they're having the best years ever. No matter where you are, it can still happen. It's a matter of perspective and paying attention and listening to and getting creative. What is seeking to emerge here? Maybe you're in a place where in that pause, you're hearing that inner voice that's been speaking to you for a while. And that's when we move into possibility, begin to identify and gain clarity on a vision of who you want to be on the other side of COVID. What if I've been, kind of pushing down for years that now that I have a pause, I can kind of look at? It might be a personal goal. It might be in profession. You might have a book you want to write. There might be a big project that you want to work on. And what I'm seeing and hearing from clients and people is that right now they have a little more time to explore those things. So think of this as a time of possibility. And in a weird way, there's people saying, I hope this doesn't end, of course, the pandemic part, but the time of being more in control of time and being more home based with things, so that they can have more time to do the beautiful things that they would love. So the question in this phase of possibility is, what is the gift? The gift opens us to possibilities and potentials of ourself and our soul that were always there, but maybe we weren't paying as much attention to it. So now is the time to pay attention. Who will I be on the other side of COVID? Have a vision, step into it. I know that for me, as a life coach, I've been home, and luckily, I'm fortunate. I do work virtually, but I usually have face-to-face speaking engagements, and I love that. I'm coming to you webinar-wise, and it's part of what I'm learning to do. I've had to pivot. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but stepping into possibility of, goodness, you know what? With webinars, I can reach more people. It's more convenient for people to jump on. I can reach across the miles, and that's actually a goal of mine, is to go further and work internationally, and that's what we can do through all of this. So then we move into, from possibility, we move into the pivot, deciding I'm going to shift. I'm going to shift in whatever area you're seeking for, and you're going to make a decision that I'm deciding that I'm getting a gift here, and I'm going to decide to take action. And it's important to make a decision every day to get into action towards where you're going, no matter what you're doing. It's empowering, and it sets aside indecision. When you're in indecision, that's where we can feel stuck, and fear can really creep in. Fear can be the thing that will hold us back from stepping forward. So we want to make sure that we're staying in the action and deciding. And so from the pivoting stage, we move into proceed. Proceed. Take action. Get into action. One of the great power moves that I share is, what is one thing I can do from where I am with what I have? What can I do? What's the action step that I can take today? Because with that, there's an energizing piece that happens. We feel more gratitude and proud of ourselves. So the key is having a vision, knowing where you're going, deciding you're going for it, and taking action. So I say vision, decision, action, repeat. Vision, decision, action, repeat. Doing that daily. It keeps your perspective much more on a positive moving forward than dwelling in all that is happening. And again, we're not ignoring what's happening in the world, but we're navigating because we want to be in a greater state of mind to be part of the resolution and be strong for those around us. And having a purpose and having your mindset at a higher level actually helps our biochemistry, and I'm going to be talking about that in a moment, that and our immunity. So where do those ideas for vision come from? I want to touch on an area that some of us are more aware of than others, and it's a place where our intuition comes from, our inner sense of wisdom, and I call it your inner sanctuary. It's a place where we feel safe, connected, and pure. And it's a place where our power comes from. And the Hindus actually call it hridayam, a place where you're protected from the world's circumstances and nothing can harm you. And it's from this place you decide that, what you're going to make of this experience and how it's going to shape you. And when we connect in with that part of ourselves and we learn from it, that's how we learn to stand firm. I kind of, in this time, I think back, and I was an athlete always, and I still, do work out and stay with that. And I think about the times of adversity during a game or whatever, and that's when I would bear down and go down deep to that place of resilience and say, I'm doing this. And that's where that wellspring of strength comes from. And maybe you can relate to that. And maybe there's something that over time you've learned how to, get that little feistiness inside and just say, I'm doing this. And you're moving forward. So it's that inner sanctuary that is the wellspring of power. And as we learn to live from the center, we know that life can't throw anything at us that's bigger than us. And it's mindset. So you have a part of yourself that is independent of the experience you're having. It can say yes or no to the thoughts that are going on, and it can be empowering or it isn't empowering, but we have that choice. That inner sanctuary is your source of strength. So I want to share a couple of people that we know over time have used that source of strength. And one of them is Viktor Frankl, who was a neurologist and a psychiatrist, and he was in Auschwitz. And during his time there, of course, they were stripping people of everything and taking all their personal items. And Frankl was trying to even write some manuscripts during that time, was hiding them under his mattress, but the guards would find it and burn it. And he was down to his last possession, his wedding ring. And they took that. They stripped him of that. And it was at that moment that Viktor Frankl really went into that inner sanctuary, and he pulled his mindset together to realize they can take everything from me, but they can't take my will. They can't take my positive attitude. They can't take my mindset of being a survivor, not just a thriver or a survivor. I'm going to thrive and I'm going to survive. And so Viktor Frankl had a great quote, and he said, everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. Amazing. And that's how he survived. It's mental mindset. We hear that many times over. I've heard and I teach about our success is really 90% of our attitude and 10% skill. So mindset's so powerful. Mandela, another great example, 27 years in the South African prison. And he had gotten to a place of giving up. And then he went down deep. And one day he heard that inner voice saying, write letters. And the letters got into the hands of the Americans. And we know, fast forward from there, he eventually was freed and then became the leader of his own country. How amazing is that? It was mindset. So I'm going to encourage you to think about, tune into that inner sanctuary, tune into the intuition. What is speaking to you that'll help you step into possibility and make the pivot and that's the place that gives you action steps as well. And if you can have the perspective of the fact that dark nights and sacred friends are part of our puzzle. Our life is a puzzle, and we have the ugly pieces, we have the beautiful pieces, and they all fit together, and they need to be there. We need the good and the ugly. We live in a world of polarity, and all of it is helping to help us evolve and be the larger version of ourselves. So if you can think about, this is just a chapter in the book, and what is your chapter during COVID? What do you want to write during this time? When you look back, what do you want to remember during this time? What are you going to be proud of? So with that, I just want to share some tools that'll help you as well. Some real concrete kinds of things. And we know the first one that I've been sharing about is mindset, and what I call noticing what you're noticing your mindset. Are you in the contractive, negative thinking, or am I in expansive? And one of the things that can easily pull us into the contractive is getting obsessed with watching the news and just hearing it over and over again. We want to be careful about that because it'll put us into the fight flight mode, and that's not productive. I'm going to share in a moment how we shift that, but pay attention and know that you can shift to the expansive, more positive thinking at any moment. Gratitude helps that. Gratitude, most of us are aware of that. Gratitude journals, having a gratitude practice in the morning. What it does is it shifts our energy to a higher level. And we know that our biochemistry is impacted by our thoughts. The negative thoughts have that negative impact. We're, putting it in feeling it inside, and vice versa. So we want to stay in that higher level thinking, and gratitude makes a difference. So in the morning, having a gratitude practice, but I also say in the evening, stepping into gratitude, because it's in that time that you're planning for the morning. It actually helps. It's the beginning of your morning routine is in the evening. And it also helps you sleep better when you can be in a gratitude mode. So another piece that I want to share, and it comes from my mind-body background, and one of my mentors shares this in our coaching. She started the coaching program at Harvard, and it's a breathing technique. We know that breathing can change our whole perspective in a few moments, and you can do it anywhere. So I love this. But breathing in through the nose creates a sense of safety. And what we're doing with that is we're moving from the what I call the sympathetic nervous system, right? That perspective in the fight flight, to more of the parasympathetic, which is more in the rest and restore. We want to be sure that we're recalibrating our nervous system so we're not constantly in the fight and flight, because we know that impacts the immune system. So this breathing technique is going to really help that. So I encourage you to do this 3 times a day. So what I say is you're going to breathe in for the count of 4 through the nose, hold for 2, and then exhale and blow out through the mouth like you're blowing through a straw. So let's do that together, or just take a moment. You're going to breathe in through the nose on 4, holding for 2, and then slowly exhaling and blowing out through the mouth. And again, do that several times. And even in one of these moments, you'll feel the calmness come over. You'll have greater clarity for thinking, and it brings a whole new state of mind. You can use this when you're feeling fearful. You can literally say, pause, take a breath, refocus on your vision, and take an action step that's more in the positive direction. That'll change your state of being at that time and your energy. So let's talk about just things that'll shift your energy in the moment. And we know that exercise does that, playing music. Some people use art, cooking, whatever it is that will shift your energy. I take walks. I love being out in nature. That makes a big difference. Having the perspective and appreciation, bringing in the gratitude there, connecting with friends and family, really appreciating, you may be with people that you're not always with, and appreciating this is a unique time to be in that time, and savoring those moments. And we also know we don't want to be in the isolation mode, and we don't want our friends and family to be in that mode either. They've actually equated isolation and loneliness to smoking cigarettes. It's even worse than smoking. So connecting and staying connected really boosts our immunity, and really makes us feel better. And the other piece that I've been sharing all along the way is having that vision. What steps can I take today that are in that positive direction, having that place that you're seeking for as you go forward. So as we begin to wind up and pull some of these things together, Joseph Campbell wrote about the hero's journey. And he had 3 steps that kind of highlight what I've been talking about as we've been moving through the 5 Ps. And the first step is the departure. You are hearing a greater call, I hear the call for a greater life during COVID. And you're leaving a version of your old life and embarking on a new adventure, either willingly or reluctantly. think about what is calling you forth. What is your departure? The second step is the initiation. You're crossing a threshold and embarking on a road of trials. And the trials may seem bigger than you, but they're revealing parts of yourself that you didn't know existed. We're building that resilience, right? As we've been talking about. It's the butterfly. We're moving into that higher version of yourself. Again, this is all a choice that you step into that. The return, the third step, the journey changes you and you learn that you're bigger than your circumstances. You return as a different person. And I always say, if you're not feeling fear or you're not, feeling energy, you may be in your comfort zone. And we're not here to be in a comfort zone. We're here to evolve and keep growing. I also say if you don't feel fear, you're in the comfort zone. You want to be stepping out and trying new things. And COVID's bringing that to us. And at difficult times, we're doing that. But it's also we can create those times of increasing our challenge and moving into that higher version by stepping out and trying new things. So remember the 5 P's. Pause. The pause is a good thing, but don't just hang out there. Get a perspective. What is seeking to emerge here? What would I love to do? How can I move through this time of COVID and really thrive and write my new chapter? What are the possibilities that are pulling at you? And pivot. Make the decision. You're going to get into action. You're going to make things happen. You're going to take action every day. So I want to share a few quotes that support all that I've been sharing. And I know I keep it in mind and it helps me shift from that contracted to the expansive and keep my mindset where it needs to be. And the first one is by Eleanor Roosevelt, who said, "We only drown if we let the water in." Think about that. What water are you letting in and being on top of it throughout your day? Ralph Waldo Emerson, in the same kind of way, said, "Stand guard at the portal of your mind." What are you thinking? Napoleon Hill, in Think and Grow Rich, wrote, "Every adversity has a seed of greater benefit." What if this could be the most growing time? What if this most amazing year could be 2020? And you'll look back like, wow, I'm so glad I didn't get stuck in fear. Because truly, life is short. I usually have my hourglass here to talk about, we don't know what tomorrow may bring. Today's the day to take the steps and move forward and to live full out. And so I'm going to just emphasize again, we're more powerful than our circumstances, and we're standing firm as camels. You were built from an amazing, liberal arts education. I love that I came from liberal arts. It's helped me to pivot and to navigate shifts in careers and other things that have come along the way. And I'm so grateful. And I'm grateful that this program is happening, Camels Helping Camels. So thank you for, being with me and sharing in this. And let's thrive, not just survive. We've got this. So I can't wait to hear all the beautiful things that, Connecticut College alumni are doing in the world. And until we meet again, health and happiness, and step into the chapter of COVID. Make it a great one.